deals in San Diego real estate. Please welcome mortgage professional from Home Street Bank, Cooper McLaughlin, and professional realtor of Wolf Real Estate team, Michael Wolf.
And we are live with my boys. Cooper McLaughlin is here. What's up, my friend? How you doing?
Very good. Nice to see you.
Great to see you too. And the Wolf is in the house. The Wolf is here. Can you believe I still have this?
I love that you have that still.
That's one of my favorite pieces of branding in all of San Diego real estate.
We're howling for your referrals. You know, that's how we do.
Michael Wolf is here. So, Michael, number of things to talk about today. People want to know where the deals are. So we got to get to that. Where are the deals? Where have they been hiding? And are they still out there anywhere? And I know you have recently, well, you had an event almost a couple years ago where your house burned down.
Yeah.
It was like a crazy thing to go through. And you've had to go through the process of, building the house back up.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, construction plays a role in what we're going to talk about as far as current market conditions are concerned. And you've had firsthand experience with that recently. So just kind of wanting to tie all of that together. Cooper, today I think we should talk about some affordable things as far as affordability and where that fits in as well.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And, some of the options that are available for clients that are just hitting the market, how are they going to afford to buy? So we want to hit on, a few of those financial instruments as well.
Yeah, what tools are available.
Exactly.
That's important too.
Yeah.
So in a tough market like this, Mike, where do we start, man?
So where are all the deals?
Yeah.
They're like 2011. They're stuck in 2011.
Like 5-6 years ago.
Yes, 5-6 years ago. But if you're looking for a deal today, the places to look are the periphery. To think that with the median income you can get in the finest areas of San Diego might be a little bit not proportional to what reality is, right? So the periphery areas that I would like to bring up are, depending on where you're in the county, if you're in North County coastal area, look to Oceanside and Vista. If you're looking at North County inland, look to places like Escondido. If you're in East County, look to places like Lakeside and Spring Valley. If you're in South Bay, check out Imperial Beach. It's still coastal and still relatively affordable, below the median home price for a single family home.
Really?
Yeah, and if you're looking for central, I would check out Barrio Logan, Grant Hills, Sherman Heights, that area that's just east of downtown. That's my personal favorite area in terms of investment appreciation quality, because it's so close to everything else that's so much more expensive. Kind of like people who said Claremont would be a good investment 5 or 6 years ago, and look what's happened since then.
What has happened since then?
Well, it's gone up like 30 or 40%. Like next to Claremont, you have La Jolla, you have UTC, you have Pacific Beach, and then Bay Park and Marina. And Claremont was, out of all of those, by far substantially depreciated compared to the average prices of those surrounding areas. So look what's surrounding a community and the reasons why, and it increases as a result. So because Sherman Heights, Grant Hill and Barrio Logan are sandwiched by downtown Golden Hills, South Park, we've seen what's happened there. And I would expect the same thing to come true in the next couple of years. Next 2 to 3 years, it's going to be a great place to invest.
Huh.
Yeah.
I think, that makes sense. With Idea District and some of the things that are going on, down there, that makes sense. And my best call ever in real estate has been Oceanside. I called Oceanside in 2013 as a place to go. And of course, since then it's like doubled. But there's only so many places.
Yeah.
Right, and that's part of the issue. That's part of the problem. There's only so many places to go in San Diego. What do you think about, I don't know, let's see, what's the best word to use for this? I'll just say it anyway. So buying in the ghetto, right? Like that's been like the real estate strategy. The best real estate strategy is like buy in the ghetto.
Yeah.
Like find the place that's like dangerous, that like no one wants to go. Buy real estate there. Well, I think that's what Barrio Logan used to be.
Yes.
But I don't think it is anymore.
Yeah,
It's really cleaned up down there.
We were talking about this the other day. You want to buy where the hipsters are going, right? buy where they. Now, not talking like high class North Park hipsters. I'm talking about like almost rugged hipsters, right? Yeah. So in a way, that's what I think of when I'm thinking of like Cesar Chavez area, right? Those are areas where like a photographer, a person that's just kind of like an artist, the artist hipster, right?
Gotcha.
They're going and living in those areas because they are willing to take the risk of living in the ghetto, right? And that's where I would point. I'd seen that happen in downtown LA. You see that happening in Barrio Logan. That's exactly what was going on. You see that happening in North Park 10 to 15 years ago, right? It wasn't that great of a place to be. Same thing with South Park and Golden Hill 10 years ago.
Well, East Village in the late 90s is a perfect example of how that can kind of morph into something in San Diego. I mean, that entire neighborhood was, drugs and, just, it was pretty rough. but you had the artist lofts.
Yes.
And they came in, and it was a fun, vibrant place to live. I mean, it was rugged, but now look, I mean, you've got the baseball stadium, Icon, you know, I mean, rentals that are going 3,000 plus for one bedrooms. And it didn't take that long. I mean, 10, 15 years from start to finish, and there was a huge change.
So all of that construction is going all the way up to the 5 freeway in East Village, right? What Cooper mentioned, and it's like it hasn't been like that until right now. And so if you go downtown and you drive on the 5 or the 94 freeway, you see all of those new apartment buildings just like right up to the 5 freeway. What's on the other side of that, right? Where one bedroom on one side in downtown is renting for $2,400 a month, and one bedroom on the other side of the 5 freeway in Sherman Heights or Grant Hill is renting for $1,100 or $1,200 a month. There's a huge delta there, and there's going to be some value where somebody on this side says, I think I'm going to walk 10 minutes and pay almost half, right? Or less than half. So there's going to be some appreciation there that's going to happen naturally because of the spillover effects of what's going on downtown.
Yeah, especially with inventory. And now they're building, there's a couple of big buildings going on over there in the, what I call the far East Village.
Yeah.
So like East Village, you know, they say.
It's pretty big.
Well, I mean, you talk about 10th, like you think like, okay, 10th is like East Village, right? And Gas Lamp's a few blocks to the west.
5th and 6th, yeah.
Yeah, but now if you go over to
17th, 18th, 19th.
Yeah, that's far East Village. Like that's away from like the safe zone, right?
Yes.
If you're talking about like Petco Park and you know those areas in the library being the safe zone. You start to go out 14th, 15th, and now you're in questionable territory. I wouldn't walk there at night.
Homeless, I mean, that's a huge issue, right? I mean, and some of that stuff has to be addressed, but I think that's easy to kind of develop your way out of to a certain extent, and I think as we start to see, you know, a lot more hit the ground there and a lot more money put in, I think that will kind of fix itself, and it'll just get pushed out further and further, you know, and kind of what Mike was hitting on. It will move into the Barrio Logan, the Sherman Heights areas, but eventually it's just slowly going to go east.
Yeah,
it's a natural.
It has to.
I think it has to. Yeah.
There's nowhere else to go. I mean, you can go up, right, which they're trying to do, trying to go up as much as possible, but the logistics of executing a project like that are so absurd. It's so difficult. I mean, we were talking before the show about there's an 80-unit complex that finally they finally finished it.
Yes. And then, like the subtitle says, we're still 140,000 units short of what the affordable housing demand is in San Diego. So affordability is a huge issue. It's going to become more and more popular, if you will. It already is, but it's going to be said more and more as we go in time because affordability is going to become less and less as the market continues to appreciate.
Yeah. Do you think the market will continue to appreciate?
I believe we talked about this a little earlier. I think I absolutely believe that our foundation, the fundamentals state that we still have a good amount of time to continue to appreciate. And we aren't talking about 10, 15% a year, but 1 to 5% a year, at least for the next 2 to 3 years. I know that Cooper thinks it's longer, but
yeah. No, I'm optimistic. I mean, I think just with the projects coming on board, I mean, a lot of that stuff won't hit for 4 to 5 years. So
you mean the new developments?
The new development. So I mean, there's a pent-up demand for housing, and I think it's going to drive the market. Rates are historically still very, very low. I don't see those going up that much. A little bit. I think it's only natural, and it has to. But ultimately, they're going to stay in a realm and a range that is still going to make things affordable.
I don't know if we can ever get off the low interest rate crack, man.
Yeah, I don't
know if we'll ever get off of it, honestly. I don't think rates will. I mean, they might tick up and down a little here and there, but I don't think they're going to be like, you're going to see 6% mortgages. I just don't know if you'll ever see it again.
I don't think so.
I think it's
so addicted to it.
Too fragile of a game to mess with, and nobody's talking about like a 40-year amortization loan, but that's something that would help out affordability, and I imagine that could probably happen down the pike once it gets to a point where like, how do we get this many people into a house? That's one way to do it. I mean, that's the name of the game. There's a lot of people that are going to be, if they don't act now, it's not all doom and gloom, but like right now is a great opportunity. Looking back 3 years from now, people do exactly what they said today 3 years ago, right? I wish I bought 3 years ago. It's still going to be the same thing. And a lot of people think there's going to be a downturn that happens, like I'm just going to hold off and wait for the prices to go down. Because in our rear view mirror, like the downturn that we just went through in 2007 was so severe and so substantial. And they think that anybody, that if they wait a couple years, it's going to go down 10, 15, 20, 40%. And I just don't see that. That's not in the cards. The market right now is built on solid fundamentals. Everybody's had to put down a down payment, had decent credit and income to actually pay for their mortgage.
That's the big difference
What
right
a concept.
now. Yeah. Yeah. It is a big difference. I mean, it's not easy qualifying for financing, not in the sense that it was in 2006, 2007. So it's, you know, there's still some pretty serious upside.
Yeah.
I think that there is, it's definitely more difficult to get a mortgage than it was in 2006, 2007.
Yeah.
But I think that was ridiculous.
Yes.
It was.
Now, it is much easier to get a mortgage today than it was, let's say, 25, 30 years ago, where, you know, you had to do manual underwriting and all these different things. You know, debt to income ratios could never be above 50. I mean, that's crazy, right?
Right.
But you can get that done today. And here it's a little bit different because DTI is sort of a silly metric where, you know, it's like residual income is more important than that. And so you start to get to these bigger housing areas, and DTI kind of doesn't make sense to be using it even as a factor. But I will say this, you know, there's a big chunk of the market is now FHA and VA versus 10 years ago.
It is.
So that's kind of replaced all that subprime paper has been replaced by that FHA paper. So that's, and FHA is still considered to be a subprime loan. It's not a prime loan.
Yeah, it is. I mean, when you have, you know, 600 FICO scores, you know, minimal trade line requirements, 3.5% down, non-occupant co-borrowers, VA is even less restricted.
Yeah, they're very
so yeah, that is a vessel, you know, that allows for, I guess, people to jump in that wouldn't necessarily fit under the traditional guidelines.
But if I can mention, like in the peak of the market, 40% of the transactions that were going on were like second home and non-occupied, like vacation homes, just completely, or rental property. They're completely speculative, right? And that was almost half of the market. It was completely out of control. Like today, it's more along the lines of what it normally is, which is about 10 to 15% of the market is that type of purchase, like where it's bought for rental or bought for second home or vacation home. So that's a good thing.
Yeah.
But it's great to have like vehicles like FHA and VA. When I bought my first house, I used an FHA 203K loan, and if it wasn't for that option, we would have never been able to buy that house. And if we didn't buy that house, I can say we put our money where our mouth is. Nothing has been more advantageous and successful for my wife and I and our family than purchasing real estate and seeing a couple good years of appreciation in San Diego can do for your personal wealth. It's a fantastic thing. And so if it wasn't for FHA, we wouldn't have been able to experience that. It's a phenomenal thing. So I think it's a great opportunity. It's a great call to action for anybody thinking about looking for a place today, that they should take the action now, because affordability is not looking any better in the future. Everybody keeps talking about interest rates going up, but we don't know if that's going to happen or not. But the time is right, and it's a great opportunity. So why not if you can do it?
Yeah, I don't think FHA is a bad thing, by the way. I want to make sure, you know, I'm not saying that, but just the facts of, you know, where the market has sort of replaced, you know, where the borrowers who are non-prime borrowers have gone as they've gone to FHA.
Yeah.
And is that a good thing or bad thing? We won't know until we have the rearview mirror to look into, you know. But that's a fact that's replaced. Now, that said, the big difference, if we want to compare this to the past crash, is rentals.
Right.
You know, rents. Because back then people couldn't give away places.
No.
I mean, they were buying houses for $600,000 and renting them out for $1,800.
Yeah.
Yep.
You know, whereas now that's, you know,
Totally
nothing. You can't rent anything for $1,800. So it's a big difference in that, and I think that is more of the backbone that's needed to prevent a crash. I don't think we're going to see a crash. Let me keep that. Let me make that clear. I don't think that a crash is, you know, something that's on the table.
If somebody's expecting that, it's not going to happen. It's going to be 0% appreciation or 1% appreciation or -2. You know what I mean? It's going to be a flat level until either wages can increase or demand continues to increase. But what Cooper mentioned, we have that supply shortage, and that's effectively keeping demand in a positive manner so that it's only going to see appreciation as we move forward, at least for the foreseeable future.
Yeah. No, I completely agree with that. And I mean, one thing that me and Mike were talking about as well with some of the FHA and VA, with the affordability stuff, is multi-units. You know, you can buy, you know, 2 to 4 unit properties and use some of the rental income to offset some of the qualifying as well. And for people that are kind of getting pushed out of this market, that can be a good alternative to get in, not only sort of set them up for the future, because they essentially have one opportunity to buy a multi-unit as a primary residence. It's when they first start out.
Yeah.
You know, so they get the primary residence rates, you know, and the super loan down payment, and then they get rental income to offset the payments as well. So,
By the way, that's the whole strategy in Missouri, like where I'm from. Like literally, that's what everyone who has, you know, the foresight to invest in their future. You buy a duplex.
Yes.
You live in one side.
Totally.
And then when you get to a point where you have enough money to buy the next one, you go ahead and you rent out the other side of that one, you buy the next one, you live in that one. And that's what everybody back home does.
And it's so rare in San Diego. There's not too many duplexes. They're in specific areas, right? It's based off of when they were first constructed and zoning requirements. And sometimes they're in really good areas too, like the beach areas and the metro areas. So the price of certain ones effectively push people out of the market. But what Cooper mentioned, it's such a good opportunity. And if it's the norm there, I wish it was the norm here. But it's great to be able to fulfill a landlord and a homeowner's shoes at the same time, because you're effectively setting yourself up for investment property and wealth creation well into the future. Yeah. It's something I wish more home buyers would at least consider at the very beginning.
And my buddy Lee, who, and maybe he's watching right now, who knows? We are live, by the way. You can drop comments, we can answer your questions right here live. But he bought in Sherman Heights, 2 different 2-unit properties. He lives in one of them. So he actually did the Missouri
excellent.
Thesis. He basically went and bought one, lived in it, went and bought the next one as soon as he had enough money scraped together. And you can do that with low down payments through the FHA programs that you're talking about. So it's not an impossible thing to do. It can be done. It's maybe not as prevalent here, but that could be a good thing. One of the things that I was a little bit concerned about in the marketplace was people leaving San Diego because it's become so important. But that's actually, we kind of need that. That would help a little bit if people left, and so what we saw.
Why do you say that?
I'm not saying like GTFO, okay? But I am saying that it doesn't hurt
it would
the
make
situation.
It would make the traffic on the 5 a little bit nicer. Let's be honest.
But we had 5 or 6 win-this listing episodes in a row, where all of the homeowners were selling and leaving San Diego.
A lot of our clients that we're helping are moving out of the area. Yeah, it's a natural migration. Effectively, home ownership, affordability is a main criteria of that. We're seeing a lot of people moving to places like Oregon, you know, where it's less expensive, but it's still coastal.
Arizona,
yeah.
A lot of Arizona.
Utah.
Yeah, and we'll get this again. I mean, back in the peak of the market, San Diego was so expensive, so people were like looking for the best areas in the county, or I'm sorry, the country to invest in. So places, you'll hear places that come up in the near future in North Carolina and Texas will come up just because it's naturally like cheap and it fits most people's needs. But there's a price to pay here. It's the sunshine tax. This is the most beautiful city, in my opinion, in the country. It's got the best weather, and it's not cheap. And people know that moving here. And I think if affordability is an issue for somebody, there are ways at which we've discussed that if you work at it, we can definitely make it happen.
Yeah, and I don't think it's a bad idea to look at, well, what can I afford and where can I afford it? Because if it is in one of these places like Grant Hill or Golden Hill, you know, I mean, South Park was just like Golden Hill.
Yeah, absolutely.
What, how many years ago?
Just like
5 years ago.
Yeah, 5 years ago.
Yep.
And we'll look at South Park now.
Yeah. Under the flight path, average price point just under $1 million for like a reasonable 3-bedroom, 2-bath home, 1,800 square feet.
Yeah.
You know?
I mean, that just happened like that.
Yeah. And that's a confluence of like the right restaurant or bar and like the right people moving in. You can see the generational move in. Like you can see, instead of there being baby boomers and people kind of like on the end out, or mostly rental property, and now all you see in South Park are pregnant women or people pushing strollers. Like there's this huge new generational shift, and you're seeing that same kind of thing happen in Grant Hill. There's a generation, or there's generations that have lived there, and that naturally has to go through its life cycle. And when it changes, what happens or what moves in are newer families with young children or young professionals, and they're willing to make that take that risk. They're willing to buy into that area, and that's all changing right as we speak. And that's why it's I think one of my favorite areas in the central part of San Diego.
Grant Hill or
Grant
South
Hill, South Park's like
it's already there.
It's already there, right? But Grant Hill, Sherman Heights, even Barrio Logan, and even to some extent Stockton, which is just east of that, but that has a lot more longer to go. We're talking about that rectangle of area that's just southeast of the 5 and the 94 interchange.
You speak of restaurants. South Park has my favorite restaurant.
Is it Buona Forchetta?
Kindred.
Oh, okay. Kindred
is that across the street?
Across the street.
Yeah.
But Buona Forchetta is my favorite restaurant.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'll shout out Buona Forchetta all day. but Kindred, not throwing that under the bus. It is so good.
Yeah.
It is so good.
Isn't it crazy how good
so
that is? It's
yeah.
100% vegan restaurant. So
Oh, wow.
yeah. Oh, it's amazing.
Are you 100% vegan now?
I would say I'm about 99% vegan.
Really?
Okay.
That's cool.
So I do indulge in a pastry here and there that I don't ask questions about,
Yeah.
you know, which it's kind of a don't ask, don't tell type thing. But
Nice.
but for the most part, yeah, I don't eat any meat or dairy or cheese or anything.
No
like that,
Omaha steaks for Christmas, and
No.
Okay.
No, you can just send me a bottle of that
That
Jaeger,
wonderful
that spice,
spiced
Jaeger
Jaeger.
spice that you've got still left over.
how about a case?
I'll take a case. I'll try to eBay it and see what happens. Anyone will pay the
maybe it's a
shipping.
collector's item
Yeah.
now. Who knows?
Might be.
But yeah, you know, you're right. The right restaurant comes in, someone sees the vision, the demographics start to shift,
Absolutely.
or whatever it is, and that can change everything. You don't know when that's coming though. Like a lot of those people who own those homes in South Park, they've been there for 30 years.
Yes.
And it just all of a sudden one day it was just kind of boom, here it
Yeah.
is. You know, so you can't really predict a few years out a lot of times because someone has to make a huge investment. Someone, you know, I don't know how long Buona Forchetta's been there.
Probably 4 years.
Okay,
4 or
so-
5 years. And I think that coincided with, like, you have this amazing place where people are coming from out of the neighborhood to check out, and it's blowing up. You know, I think that's always helpful, and that
Yeah.
gets people to see, oh, this place is pretty cool, right? And if somebody wants to live in, say, we're using South Park as the example, but like Mission Hills, a lot of similar architecture, but for the price of the same house in Mission Hills, it's like $500,000 more. For the same kind of home that we were talking, that's $1 million. So it's 50% more. Maybe somebody who wants to live in Mission Hills would live in South Park, but the right type of thing needs to be there. That walkability is huge, and that's what makes South Park special. You can just walk to a pizza place or walk to the park, walk to all of the things that make it cool to live in South Park.
Once the yoga spots start opening up, then you have a good idea that there's.
Then it's game over. It's already there, right?
It's
yeah,
already
yoga,
there.
the kombucha, like the coffee spot, right? There's
Yeah.
Dark Horse on 25th in Golden Hill. Like then you already know, okay, it's too late. Like
Yeah, it
I
might
already
be too late,
I
yeah.
missed the curve. But that's why we say, like, on the other side of the 94, that's
None of that's there yet.
none of that's
It's
there,
not.
and but it's coming. And
So maybe you could look and say, all right, well, where would someone develop these things once the time is right, and get in by proximity to that? Because if you, and I think Kindred pretty much is around the same time, maybe a little bit after Buona Forchetta, but they basically said, hey, look, there's a line out the door of this place over here.
Yes.
Let's drop a spot across the street.
Yeah.
You know, people are coming. They're coming to this area.
It used to be called Alchemy, and Alchemy
remember
was
that.
probably going out of business, but it was only probably kept in business because of the people that are waiting in line to go to Buona Forchetta are like, well, what do I do for 45 minutes? Well, there's a bar. Let's go get a drink at Alchemy. And so they probably, if it wasn't for Buona
I did that.
Forchetta, exactly. Like they probably went out of business like a year or two, like earlier, right? They were just kept in. So, but Kindred now, you have like a cool concept, amazing food. And it's just fun. Like my favorite thing to do is to go there for brunch on Sunday.
Bro, Sunday brunch
Yeah.
there is just unbelievable
Yeah.
bomb. It is an interesting concept. It's like goth. It's like
Vegan metal
goth.
bar.
Yeah, it's vegan metal. So there's like this heavy metal playing in the background at all times. It's
Check
like,
out the
dun,
bathroom. Check out the bathroom.
dun, dun. It's kind of crazy. And then they have this huge
wow.
like pig head with like.
It's like a triple-headed wolf, like with horns, and it's awesome. I
Yeah,
actually kind of want a
super
small
gothic.
one in my house.
You're gonna trade this out?
Absolutely.
Trade out the
in
wolf?
a minute. I'm like, that thing is awesome. Yeah. It's like 3 snake heads. It's pretty cool.
It's a little interesting.
The decor is it doesn't make it it's not boring. Let's just say for the interior of that restaurant, but the food is what
Food is off
gets you
the
coming back.
charts. Yeah, food's off the charts. Then I also have amazing cocktails there too. So those little things do add up, and it makes a big difference. But I think if we're talking about specifically where the deals are, look where no one wants to be, right?
Yep.
That's the rule in real estate. Like, buy where no one wants to go. I don't want to go there. I don't want to go there. That means that you're going to be able to get in probably at the lowest possible point. And even in an up market like this, some of those rougher areas, they haven't seen a ton of appreciation. Been a little bit. But Barrio, I think it might be too late. That's the only one I'm going to say. It might be too late.
There's just
once
a
the
lack
sign is up,
Yeah, the sign.
once the Barrio sign goes up, and it's so clean. I mean, the last time I drove through there,
Yeah.
I couldn't believe it.
Yeah.
I couldn't believe it. It had been 2 or 3 years.
There's so much cool stuff there, right? There's breweries there, there's cool restaurants, there's coffee shops, there's a K1 speed racing thing, there's a paintball park in that same area. But that was, the writing was on the wall because about 5-6 years ago, a bunch of artist lofts were there.
Yeah.
Architects were moving in and using the work loft space or the live workspace as that area of which to function out of. So, and it was the hipster area. So keep an eye where those hipsters are moving to, and that's the spot to be. That's like the #1 advice.
Follow the hipsters.
Follow
he
the
says,
hipsters
with your
and
real
then
estate dollars.
follow the money after that. Yeah, they like make everything cool.
And then
Literally.
And they're always like, oh, this is cool, and then I'll move there, and then it just goes from there.
Oh, just a bunch of hipsters who live there. It's totally safe now, honey.
Totally, right? It's not, yeah.
yeah.
But think about
Skinny
downtown
jeans.
LA. Downtown LA 10, 12 years ago, it was called Fortress LA. People leave for work and then they leave LA downtown, and it is like a fortress, and they make the whole city where it's not inviting and not cool. But a lot of artist lofts were there. A lot of the hipsters were moving in, and they were. I went to a photo shoot there for a clothing company like 10 years ago, and I'm right by Spring Street, and it's basically Skid Row. And now, 10, 15 years later, the hipsters moved in, made it cool, and LA has luxury apartment buildings. It's completely different. It's completely changed around. And anybody that tells you about downtown LA is like a cool place to go. Whereas just a decade ago, it was like shut the doors, the metal garage door gates closed down on the shop, and like let me get out of here because there's nothing cool to go on. So,
Yeah. And it's tough. I mean, one thing to keep in mind as well, it's not easy qualifying to get into a rental. I mean, you have to go through a lot of the same
True.
process as you do with a mortgage. I mean, they check your credit, they look at your financials. Down payment is, essentially security deposit and last month's rent.
Yeah, that's true.
So from that perspective, I think people need to keep in mind that, there's alternatives out there that in the long run are going to be, probably a smarter bet than, going through. If you got to go through the process anyways, you might as well just go through and, buy your own place. Of course, I'm a little prejudiced on that.
He admits his bias.
we live in a society of instant gratification, and we want to be able to buy our first house and just be a dream house that I can just post on social media and say, look how amazing my first house is. It doesn't need to be like that. It's okay if it's a condo. It's okay if it's a home in the periphery. It's okay to get on that first ladder, because that first rung on the ladder, it needs to be somewhere. It doesn't have to be, the $1 million home that we all make it out to be in our society. So it's okay to like swallow pride. Look what's affordable. Make it happen. Like there's ways to do this, and
Investing should have no emotion.
yeah.
I mean, look at my buddy Lee. I mean, his places have doubled in value.
You couldn't give it away when he bought it. Like
Yeah.
you're like, hey, let's live in Sherman Heights. You'd be like, absolutely not. And now it's totally different.
Yeah,
and it's only getting better.
Oh my gosh, he absolutely has crushed it, and he's ready. He's ready for the next one.
Yep.
So
Nice.
and he'll have 2 properties of 2 units, all bankrolling income. I mean, because he bought at such a good time.
That's the key.
His cash flow is killer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think there's a lot to be said for that strategy, and of course, according to the Wolf, follow the hipsters.
Follow hipsters.
Thank you so
good.
much for coming in today, man. It was great to see you, Cooper.
Always
Appreciate
a
your time,
pleasure.
man. Can we howl it out, guys? Can we
Ready?
howl?